So this is the interface of After Effects. By default it's going to look something like this, the essential, the standard one. So let's reset the standard, reset standard. By default it's going to look like this, and one window is going to appear to create new composition, or to open a recent composition and all those things. And if you close it, then you get this window, and whichever window you select, that appears in blue lines in CC versions. In earlier versions it used to be darker yellow. And if you go to any of the windows, I mean, you don't have to click on that window. If you hover over the mouse and if you press delta on your keyboard, and then the window gets expanded. Okay, so this is very basic navigation of After Effects, or I should say any Adobe software. And the panels you are not going to be needed. You can close it like this, or you can undock them. That means it can be a floating panel if you need it, or you can actually drag this window and drop to any other. Like if you drop in the middle, then it is going to be docked here on the top of the screen, or if you can dock them in the side of this particular panel, or ekdam like left side of the window interface. All these basic things you can do. So I will basically turn off all the other things, and I will only keep the effects and presets in the right side. In the left side I will keep the project window, where you actually import different project files, and this is the composition panel where you see your actual composition, and this is the timeline. And another window that I want to keep, which is the effects control. That means whichever effect I apply to a particular composition or a layer, the effect parameters are going to be displayed here. So this is very basic of After Effects interface, and you can save any interface from here. You can save interface, you can delete interface, you can create new interface, and after that let's see how to open or import a file in After Effects. By the way, each and every files that you can import in After Effects, that's called here footage. So it can be an image, it can be a video layer or image sequence or anything, but all those things here is going to is called here in as footage. So there's different ways to import a footage. Either you can go to this file menu and import, and from there import file, and control I, which is a shortcut of importing file, or you can simply double click here, and that will do the same thing. So let's go to After Effects classes, and from there let's import a footage. Let's say this one, so footage from my movie. If you want to import an image sequence, then let's double click on this screen, and hopefully this is one. So I have an image sequence here, and all you need to do is double click on that first image, or any image actually, and it will import. It will be imported as an image sequence. And you can see by default this option, which is PNG image sequence. PNG is the file format, and it's a sequence, or After Effects actually automatically detects whether it is a image sequence or not. You can see all the numbers as really given here. So that's why After Effects actually automatically detected that this is an image sequence. If you don't want all these images as image sequence, you want to select multiple images, then you can see this range of images are selected. That's why the image sequence option is turned off automatically. Or let's say you want to import only one single image, then you have to manually uncheck this option, or if it is checked unchecked, then you have to turn it on. So all I have to do is double click on this footage or select here import and click on the import, then it will be imported in our project panel. um, like Premiere Pro, you cannot actually see a thumbnail view of your different footages. The thumbnail is going to appear here. You cannot change the size. And also you can huh we are going to create a new composition, and we can actually import any Premiere profile. Let's see that whether I have any Premiere profile or not. That means actually let's give you a quick demonstration. So let me pause this, continue. So I have this Premiere Pro project here. So all we need to do now is go to file, import, and from there we have to select Adobe Premiere Pro project, and let's go to the directory. Oh, not there, it's on the desktop. So you can open a Premiere Pro project, and it will ask whether you want to import all the sequence, if you have multiple sequences, or any single sequence, and whether you want to import the audio or not. So I will just hit OK, and it will import only those footages that are that particular project file is using. If any project file which is not been used in that project, it's not going to import. And there a sequence which is called a sequence in Premiere Pro here in After Effects is called a composition. So all I have to do now is double click on that composition, and you can see the entire Premiere Pro project is here, but it looks different. It looks layer by layer in a stacking order, but the entire thing is here. There is certain things that doesn't work in this if you import a Premiere Pro project, which is like if you use few what is it called, transitions, with video transitions, those things doesn't work properly. I usually, like, if you are using dissolve, I usually prefer to turn down the opacity and import the file here. So this is basically how you import a Premiere Pro project in After Effects. So I'm just going to hit Ctrl Z. Key points, those things are gonna be as it is. So you can import keyframe animation from Premiere Pro to After Effects. After that, the option we are going to check is called interpret footage. Yes, that composition. Let me show you. Very good question. Okay. So this is a composition, and if I open it, double click and open it, you can see if I go to the composition settings. By the way, you can do the same from here, composition settings, and you can see all the settings of that particular sequence. If you go to the sequence setting, you can see 1920 by actually 16 is to 1600 and something it's showing. So there is something. Oh, actually it is the screen recorded video. So if it is not matching, okay, it is absolutely matching. Okay, so you can get the same composition settings. Length, absolutely. Those things are not going to be changed. Okay. So once you import the entire footage, then the question you face is, what is the settings for the footages? I mean, what is the aspect ratio and import Premiere Pro Android Premiere Pro project, open all sequence, okay, and এটা এটা তো স্ক্রিন ক্যাপচার। কোনটা আসছে বলছো বলো তো? হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ, এটা তো অ্যাকচুয়ালি স্ক্রিন ক্যাপচার ভিডিও তো। হুম, বুঝতে পেরেছো? So once you open a footage, then you have some specific parameters which is assigned to that footage, like the frame rate, the aspect ratio, and all these things. Basically, the frame rate is going to be the thing which you needed to be changed. Like if you are importing a footage and you are going to make a composition with out of it which is going to be 24 frame per second, but the footage, as it is an image sequence, it's showing me it's 30 frame per second. Okay, but we don't want that, because now if I create a composition with this 30 frame per second footage, it's not going to match the duration of our actual composition. So for that, the first thing you need to do, so remember this thing, because the default composition settings for importing a footage in After Effects is going to be 30 frame per second. So for that we need to change this default settings from the preference import. Okay, here we have sequence footage 30 frame per second, and I will change it to 24, and I'm going to hit OK. Now if I import any other image sequence, let's import the same thing again, and you can see it is 24 frame per second. Now let's say I have imported these footages and I need to change the frame rate. Let's say this is a video footage, but I need to change the frame rate. Okay, so to do that, what you have to do is this option, which is called the interpret footage. You can right click and you get the same option. Okay, you don't, but from the layer menu you get that option. So just select this footage and click here, and you get this option 24. You can see that the frame rate, it's saying 25. You can change it to 24. That is going to become a custom frame rate for us. And the time code, where it is starting, it's starting from 0 frame. Let's say we don't want that. We want because you are importing an animation and you want it to start from frame 1, that you can do that. And the pixel aspect ratio, obviously you can change that. Obviously you cannot change the frame aspect ratio, because the frame aspect ratio is already out. You have made the render output with the particular frame aspect ratio, but you can change the pixel aspect ratio. And there will not be, if you are having, that you have a 24 frame per second animation, and this 25 may sometimes, what happened is, as I have shown you in the earlier example, when you are importing an image sequence or anything, it's importing in 30 frame per second. So that's a default value, so you can change that. One thing. Another thing, if you have shooted this footage in 25 frame per second, then what is going to happen if you are making it 25 to 24, then it is obviously going to become a little bit slower. Okay, yes. Hmm? Yes, I'm coming to that. So that's how you, from that interpret footage, from this option interpret footage, you can change the setting, FPS settings. And what is the difference between pixel aspect ratio and sequence and frame aspect ratio? So when you create a new composition, uh, let's say I'm creating a new composition, and from here you can do that. Also you can do that from new composition menu here, from here. So this is basically the frame aspect ratio, which is how many pixels is they are going to be in the width. Let's say for us we have 2048. We want 2048 pixels to be there in the width, and I'm going to uncheck this lock option, aspect ratio option, and in the height we want 1152 pixels. but that doesn't mean that this footage is going to look like 16:9 all the time. Why? You can see uh, like if it is, if I change the pixel aspect ratio, and it is not going to actually look like a 16:9. You can see it is not actually, it is I can change it to any other thing. You can see the changes that are happening here. Let me fit. So actually what it means, you can see the change. Now I have um, 2048 and 1152 pixels in height and width, but the aspect ratio of the pixel is different. That means each and every pixel is kind of stretched, so that's why the entire frame is getting stretched. You understand that? So if you make it I'm sorry, from the composition settings, our standard pixel aspect ratio is square pixel aspect ratio, and for most of the broadcasting nowadays this is the actually standard pixel aspect ratio, because other things you can see those are for mainly TVs. You can see DV, PAL and whatever, so those things are there, but mostly for our you know you can do web broadcasting or whatever, the output we are going to be need, that is mostly in square pixel ratio. That means each and every for each and every pixels we have the same value for the length and the width. Okay, so whenever you are importing this footage from here or anywhere else, you have to match these three things. One is the two things, one is the frame aspect ratio, and another thing is the pixel aspect ratio, and after that comes the frame rate. Okay, and other things you can change later on also, like resolution. This is basically the display resolution here, so that option we can change after creating the composition. And time code, the start time code, I have made it one, I think in After Effects by default it will be 0. And the duration we can also change it after we create the composition. And the background color, that's actually very basic thing, that's for only for the display. If you it's actually an transparent area. If you are not rendering the making the output with alpha channel, then you get this kind of background color. If you don't have any content in the screen, then you get this kind of a background color. So this is kind of already I have covered the creating new composition, as we are talking about the pixel aspect ratio. Alpha channel is basically the transparency information. Okay, when I am going to show you some example, you are going to be clear about that. So deleting and creating new folder. You can create new folders. Let's say you have multiple number of things and you want to organize them, so you can create new folder, scene 1, shot 1, and you can drag and drop all those things to the particular folder. This is basically to organize everything. And after that, so we have covered all these three options. After that, we have this option for it says 8 BPC, that means 8 bit per channel or color channel. So that means that it's a 8-bit color channel. That means we have 256 number of color in our dynamic range. That means from black to white we have 256 number of colors. Okay, and if you click Alt and click here once, it's going to be 16-bit color channel. That will make it like 2000 something like that. And if you click 32-bit, that makes a floating aspect ratio, that which is the raw aspect ratio. And we can click here again, and that will become 8-bit color channel. And you can see the difference. What is that? If you want to see any difference, so I can create a an example file here. So I'm going to create something like this. Then what I am doing right now, it's not necessary because I'm going to discuss all these things later on. So you'll fill it with white, and I will assign it this thing. Go to the feather. I'm going to add some feather, and actually if I change these values in the render output, you actually going to clearly see the difference. You will see some lines here. So maybe if I change the values, huh? Resolution, that is not a problem, so make it full. So when I change the value for the feather, you will see some lines here. If it is, I don't know whether it is visible through this desktop sharing. You can see some lines. These are basically because of the dynamic range. Now I'm changing the entire dynamic range of the composition. So I'm going to alt click once. You can see it's become much more smaller. This thing, this pixel expression. And if I click it again, and it's going to be, actually it's not showing any difference, but when you render out from 8-bit color channel, you will see some difference. So there will be this kind of harsh edges, but we are going to work in 8-bit fit per color channel, otherwise it is going to be really slow. So let's hit Ctrl Z couple of time, and now I have shown you how to create a new composition, which is created here, and there is another option which is for the rename, and you can change the name of composition from here and from here also. Like you can change the name from here, or if you go there and hit enter, you can change the name of the composition, whatever it is. Now one thing that you can see this file, this video file, I can change the name of the video file from here. But it does not actually change the name of the actual file that is in the directory. That is the name we have given. And another thing is, let's say I am going to import this file here in this composition, and now I want to rename it again. Let's say whatever it is. You can see the name have been changed here, but not in our project panel. That means this name is given for this particular composition. So you can do that. You can change these names, to whatever you want in a in different compositions. Okay, and you can say this option which is called the layer name. Right now this column is only for the layer name. If you click it once, then it is going to become source name, and then you can see the source name. Okay. And now how you can import a file. Actually, let me change it to the 1080p, 1920 by 1080p, as the 16:9 was turned on, so it automatically become 1080. And if I drag and drop a file, how we can import a footage into our composition, I can drag and drop here. You can see Ctrl Z. I can drag and drop here also. So here I can leave the file actually anywhere we want. Let's say I want the file to be appear here. We can do that also. And other thing is, let's say I want to create a composition based on the exact length of the particular footage with the exact particular pixel dimension of the footage, with this height and width value and everything, with 24 frames per second. And I don't want to bother about what is the difference between the composition FPS and the footage FPS and everything. So what I can do, I can click on the footage, I can drag and drop it on this create new composition icon. If I do that, what is going to happen is it will create a new composition. It will change the name of the composition with the footage's name, actual name of the footage, and it will match the footages in and out point, and it's going to create a new composition for us. Okay, and also it matches the fps of the original file. Okay, so this is how you import. I know this is I mean very boring and basic things, but I need to cover these things up. After the these very basic interface and dragging and dropping very basic things, we are going to start with animation. So let me show you very basic of nesting. You will hear this term in post production, which is called a nesting composition. And what that is, let's say I'm going to create a composition here, and all these things I'm going to discuss. What am I doing with this thing? I'm going to discuss it later on. So okay, I'm doing the same thing again, and I'm going to add some effect on it, and I'm going to bring down the transparency like this. Okay, no, maybe no, may not be this effect, but so I'm going to add some effect, and I'm going to duplicate this file, and let's turn it off. And for this one I'm going to make some other change. So I have two different layer with two different effects. I can make a actually let's change the blending mode to whatever we need, something like this. So I can actually select both of this file, and I can make a precom. And how I am doing this I'm showing you later on. And let's say I have another composition, another footage that I'm going to drag and drop here, and I am going to change the blending mode, and it's another footage actually, and I'm going to shift control C. So I can actually make a composition out of these two things. This process is basically called nesting composition. Now if I hit tab, you can see I can go backward and forward on this composition panel. And there is another thing which is called the if I want to go open this precomp 2, then I have to double click here, and then I get all these two things, and I can double click here too. And if I want to go back to the parent composition, then all I have to, like, you may have multiple number of compositions here, like 50, 60, whatever it is. So if you can just click here, click the tab, and you can select to go to the tab. Press the tab key, then you can go to the parent, to the child, or whatever is there. Now you can go by hierarchy. So default it's just blending mode. And this is what called, I am not showing you the how to do it. This is basically what's called the nesting composition. And another thing is which is called the project flowchart. I believe I can, yeah, this is the thing. If I select it, okay, you can see we have this project flowchart, and from there we have this is basically the schematic view or the node view. You also have that. So with these two footages, I have made a blending, like I have duplicated that file after different effects, and under this thing I have this footage which I have duplicated, this footage that I have duplicated 2 times, and on that duplicated footage you can see I have applied some effect. If I double click on it, it will go directly to that thing. I had applied 2 levels. Okay, let's actually apply a separate thing. So here maybe I will apply a hue saturation. So, and you can see, so I have duplicated this footage twice. Okay, the first one, which is the top in the stacking order, I have applied this level effect, and the second one I have applied this color balance effect, and with these two composition I have created this precomp, which is called the precomp 1. We can change the name, which is called this thing precomp 1, and I have added another effect or whatever is there, which is, and I made another precomp, and I have added another the stabilized footage, which is the live action footage, and I have precomp them together also. So this process is basically called the nesting composition. It might look confusing right now, but later on you will get it. So I just wanted to cover this thing while we are talking about the composition thing. So this is how we create a nesting composition. We can delete. If I select all this composition and hit delete, then it will ask that whether you want to, it's not asking, it's only deleted the composition, but actually file is there, the actual files are there. And understanding time code, another very necessary thing. So let's click and drag this file to here, this footage here, and you can see the time code, which is called 0.00.00.00. This is the frame, the second, minute and hour. Okay, so if I, let's say if I want to go to let's say the fifth frame, only the fifth frame, all I need to do is hit 5 and hit enter. So it will take us to the fifth frame of this particular composition. Okay, not the fifth frame of the file. The file can be here also. Okay, so it will take us to the fifth frame of the composition. And let's say that we want to go to the fifth we don't have fifth, this footage is not 5 seconds. Let's say now this footage is not that long. Let's say 2 minute, let's say 13 frame, sorry, 2 second 13 frame. To do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to press 3. If I press 3 and dot and enter, it will take us to the third second, the first frame of the third second. And if I want to go to the, if I like press 2.15 or 16, then it will take us to the 2 second 15 frame. Okay, and if I add another dot in it, like let's say we can, if I had a like 1 minute long footage, then I could have, like with this footage actually I can do that 2.3.14. okay, this footage is not that long, it's also 10-second footage, so you can understand that. And this is basically how timecode works. You can also drag and click and drag like this. And another thing is what we can do, if you click on the control click on the timecode, then it goes to the toggles with the only frame mode. So here if I add 50, it will take us to the 50th frame of the composition. It will count the entire thing as frames. Okay, so it will take us to the 50th frame. Doesn't matter 15 frame means which second, which minute or whatever it is, because control and click, just click once. So because the frame rate can be different, it could be a 12 frame per second composition or 24 frame per second composition, but the number of frames are going to be the same. So we can go to the 50th frame like this, or whatever 12 frame like this. Okay, so give the numeric value and hit enter. So this is the time code. And let's go to the very basic navigation. So let me pause it for. So after that, the basic navigation of composition panel. And here if you like, you can actually in Photoshop you can treat a video file as a Photoshop file, I mean as a Photoshop image. The way you can modify and Photoshop image in image file in Photoshop, you can do the same thing with video file. You have that all that options here. So let's do this, check on this thing. If you change the scroll wheel like that, and then you can zoom in and out of with the footage, and also you can see that the percentage of a foot of this viewing, what is it called, percentage of display is getting changed like this. And you can change it to, from here you can change it to fit, so it will always going to be fit with the display. If I change the display size like this, it's always going to be always going to fit with our display. You can change it to fit up to 100%. Let's say this footage was the composition such, if we're not going to see any change because the file size is quite high. That means basically when it is going to up to 100%, it's not going to expand anymore. So for us with this footage, it's basically the same. Then we can actually numerically change, we can select all the different zoom in and out values. So very basic option. After that we have choose grid. You can, if you want the shape action area to appear, you have all these things. So afterwards I've done a very good thing, which is collapsed all this option in this particular icon. Then you have the proportional grid. You can change the grid from actually the what is it called, preference, and you can get different grids. If you want guides, it will appear. You can have rulers, and you can create guides like this. If you are drawing, designing something, animating something, a lot of time you are going to need these guides. And if you want to disappear this guide to disappear, just select them and move like this, move out of the screen. And the shortcut for the ruler is Control R. And if you want to hide these guides, the shortcut is Control Shift H. That will hide all the guide. Actually Control Shift H actually hides all the guide from the footage. So Control R, hit Control R. After that we have this option, which is to turn on and off the masks. So if I am going to come to this mask option. So if I create a mask, then let's say I don't want to see the mask, I only want to see the footage, I can do that with this option. The same timecode option here also. After that we have this, so I'm just going to move this. After that we have this snapping option, which is basically to see the difference between two different frame. So if I click here, it will take an image, and now the shortcut is Shift F5 to take a snapshot. So Shift F5, and if I go to any other frame, if I want to see the change with the previous frame, I can just click on this option, which is called show snapshot, and it will toggle, give me a toggle view of that particular frame. If I even go to the next composition, let's say I need to match the color with the previous composition, I can do the same thing here. So it is just an image that we are showing, and the shortcut to show toggle images is only F5. To take the snapshot, I have to click Shift F5, and if I go to another composition, if I press F5, then I can see the toggle difference. Then we have this basic view of viewing options, if you want to see it in RGB or red, green, blue channels. After that we have this option, which is the viewing option, the display option, that how much you want to see. You can change it to full quality, then you will see each and every pixel of the video footage. Or let's say you want to see every other pixels, and that will reduce the video quality but going to give you a faster preview. But in recent After Effects versions are pretty fast. I mean, you are not going to see the difference with a single footage, but you can see if I go to the full preview, we are getting this, and after that if you select the half, then it will create a pixel with this 4 pixel. Okay, And if you go to third quality, so the pixel quality is going to be huge. It's basically means it's reading every third pixel, and we can make it to quarter also to get much more faster preview when you have multiple number of layers in your composition. And also you can custom it, so that's the amazing thing. So let's say I want to see 10, let's say I want to see 15 pixels in horizontally, 15 pixels vertically, so I can do that. If I want a faster preview, I can change this pixel value. Let's say I want to see 5 pixels horizontally, that is going to also happen. So this is basically this viewing option, and the auto is basically is going to detect the based on your computer's performance, it is going to change the display quality. Then we have this region. So let's say you have a lot of thing in your composition. If you can turn on a particular region to show, this option is also there in 3D softwares, so you can only see this much, or say I'm sorry, I don't want to the footage. You can only see this much of the footage, and it is going to render particular this portion. If you have a lot of thing and you don't want to render the entire thing, you have made a change in this particular area, you want to see the changes here with the time, then you can do that. So you can see when you click when you make a particular region, you get this icon in blue, and if you click it once, the region disappears. And after that you have this option toggle transparency. If you have any transparency in your composition, you can toggle it to see where the transparency is. So let's see, I have created this mask, and now I'm seeing the background, which is the background color I have selected in the composition. And what I can do is if I select this option, and it's actually shows us that these areas are actually matted area, I mean a transparent area. So by toggling this option on and off, you can see where you have transparency in your composition. And then we have these different cameras. So the from front view and left view, back view, top view, bottom view. If you are using 3D layers, then you are going to be needed all these different views. We are going to cover all these things when you are going to be working with 3D. Also we have like different views which will be going to be needed in 3D view, like so you can split these views with top, right, and different angles. So after that we have this toggle pixel aspect ratio correction. I don't know what it is, I never used it. And this option, I would say that turn it off, which is the adaptive resolution. By default it will be adaptive resolution. That means when you make any change, it will gonna show you a pixelated view. Let's say I'm scrubbing through time, and it is, you can see it's making pixelated to give us faster preview. Okay, if you turn it off, you are not going to see this pixelated views. So basically, as I've told you earlier, this footage, this is a very simple composition, so that's why my computer can run it very easily. Now if you have something like if you have some heavy effects with this adaptive resolution option turned off, then what is going to happen is, if you click here, it's going to take a lot a little bit time to read this particular image. And but when you are scrubbing through time, it's going to give us the final preview. Then this option is for timeline. If if you are not seeing the timeline here, you can just click here and the timeline is going to appear. Like if you even close it and click here, the timeline is going to appear. Another thing is composition flowchart that we have seen earlier. And after that we have the exposure option. I don't know when you are going to be needed it. Actually I have never needed this option, which is you can actually change the exposure of your view. This is not, it's not changing the, it's not any effect or anything, it's not changing the actual composition color information. Maybe let's say when you are working in outdoor, maybe or that kind of scenario, but it's not, I mean it's actually by changing the exposure, it's making some hot spots in our it's just changing the gamma. So I don't know when it's going to be, I mean, helpful for you, but this option is there. And another option, which is the lock composition. I am going to show you an example. When you are going to work with multiple composition, you can basically lock this view and go to another composition and make changes here, but you will never see the, you know, different composition panel if you lock this view, and that becomes necessary for certain times or certain cases, but I am going to show you that thing later on. And let's see the basic navigation. uh, the selection tool, which is the V, you know that if you press V, you get the selection tool. Then for the for the hand tool, basic, for the basic navigation, if you click the middle mouse button and move, you can move the preview from the composition panel like this. And if you even press and hold the space bar, you can do the same, and you can left click and move. And if you hit space once, it will play back the composition. And yeah, after that we have the zoom tool. This is basically the shortcut is Z, and the toggle option also works here. Like if I press and hold the Z, the zoom tool, and if I click here once, and after that if I leave it, it will go back to the previous tool that I was selected. So then we have the rotation tool. For this is for dealing with a particular layer, layer properties. You have the rotation tool. The shortcut is W. You can rotate a file like this, a footage. Then you have 3D camera. You have camera. When you are going to work with 3D layers, you will need the camera. And then after that we have the pan behind tool. This is basically the tool which by using which you can change the anchor point, so like this. And then the mask, the different shapes you can create like from here. And the pen tool, the pen tool, the text tool, you know all these things. Then you have the brush tool. You can create, actually you can paint with your brush tool if you are using a pen tab, and we have thick and thins and all these things. This is not the right example, but I can show you. So it's not going to work on this window. So to get the work with the brush tool, you have to double click on the footage, and it will appear on the layer panel. The difference between layer panel and the composition panel is basically this is actual layer that you are seeing the footage, and here you any kind of changes you make, that will appear here. So this is the difference between the drawing panel and the camera panel in animation tools software. So I can change the diameter of this thing, and you can see we have very good thick and thin with very basic brushes. Like I can change the hardness, and I can create different type of tilted brushes. So, and I will show all these options, what you can do with this thing, because when you create this thing, you can change it frame by frame. You can make the drawings to stay for whatever frames you need. You can change the duration also. So that option you have, but I'm going to come to that later on. If I expand this option, you can see in the paint this option we have this 4 or 5 strokes. You can change these strokes like this. So now it will appear one by one. So actually this is I am going to come to this thing later on. So you can animate it, yes, but you don't have the the onion skin view here. So if you have any reference, you can work on that, work on top of that. Erase the tool, you can erase, you can erase by using the erase tool. After that you have after that we have the clone and stamp tool. And why is this tool here? Clone and stamp is a very necessary thing when you are doing VFX, because there is a lot of wire removal you do in VFX with this clone and stamp tool. And after that we have the eraser, and then we have the roto brush. I'm going to come to that. Roto brush is basically like the plastic tool. This is the deformation tool in After Effects. I'm sorry, this I'm not. This is the puppet tool, puppet pin tool. This is the deformation tool in After Effects, like plastic tool in Open Tools. And then this is the roto brush. This is basically to rotoscope. This rotoscope is not the drawing process. So where we were, the rotoscope here is not the rotoscope drawing process. It's basically the masking process. If you want to mask a particular um character or anything from your footage, you want to remove the background or this kind of thing. This is basically the auto masking, uh, tool for After Effects. Uh, for certain things, it works very really nice. You don't need to do that manually. After Effects will automatically detect the footage and do the masking for you. And these are basically the tools, the navigation tools in After Effects. I know. Now how to see a playback in After Effects. Now this is a very simple footage again. So the playback will happen in real time. So if I hit space, it gives us the playback. Okay, but you are not going to hear the sound, though these files don't have contain, I mean don't have any sound. You can see, because these are, I have removed the sound. So if you hit, sorry, if I go there, so if I have sound with for this file. So if I hit space once, and if I hit, okay, in recent versions the playback happens like this automatically. The first time it will actually load the entire data in cache, in RAM, and the second time you will get the playback. In earlier days with the spacebar, it was only used to show us the visuals, and to get the audio and the real time playback you have to press the 0 in your numpad, and then it will load the entire thing in RAM. And you can see the green areas are the areas which is loaded in the RAM, and then you get the entire playback. So nowadays space and 0 in your numpad, those are the basic same things. And after that, if you want to see the footages frame by frame by frame, then in other like photo edit, in Premiere you press the left and right arrow, right? But if you do that here, let's say that I have selected this layer, and if I do the left and right, then what is going to happen? It is going to move the footage left and right, because this is like kind of a editing software for videos. So to go left, previous, to see the previous and forward frames, what I have to do is page up and page down. Okay, so the previous and next frame with page up and page down, and you have the zoom in and out option here, and red line, where it is coming? Where is the red line? I cannot see any red line. Huh? Oh, this line. This is a time indicator. Ha ha ha. Ha. If you zoom in the view, you can drag here, and you can actually uh, drag here to see the entire thing. And this is very basic things. I don't need to explain these things. And let's say if you have zoomed in somewhere else and you want to go to the current time indicator, press D, then the view is going to jump here. And after that, now I'm going to come to trimming footages. So I am trying to include all these things together, because I want to finish the basics of After Effects as early as possible, because we have a lot to cover. and we need to do some practice also. So trimming a footage. Now there is two ways to trim a footage. One is after you have imported the footage in your timeline, in your composition, what you can do, if you go to the left corner of the footage, you get this indicator, the arrows, and you can click and drag. That will trim the footage. And like Premiere, if you hit shift, it is going to give you the snap mode. So if you click and drag, it will automatically snap with the time indicator. Okay, then you will get actual, this thing, like if you go into that, you will see the footage is actually starting from the time indicator. And also if you hold press alt and move your scroll wheel, then it's going to zoom in and out. So you can do your trimming like this, or you have shortcut for this. So do note, take a note of this thing. Let's say I want this footage to start from here, then either I can do it like this, but I have a shortcut for this, which is alt and the third bracket, the open third bracket. If I do that, it will automatically jump and cut the footage here. When it is necessary, let's say you are seeing this footage when you are zoomed in here, so you don't need to go back and zoom out and do the cutting from that end. So all you have to do is press alt, and now I'm going to press close third bracket. Okay, so it will automatically cut the footage for you. Okay, so if you want to go to by the way, if you press home, it will take you to the start of the composition, entire composition. If you press end, it will take you to the end of the composition. If you press I, then it will take you to the start of the footage you have selected. Okay, you can have multiple number of footages, and the start of those footages can be from anywhere else. So if I have selected this footage and I press I, then I will go to the start point of this footage, and press O, then the end point of this footage. Okay, and another thing, let's say I want both of these footages to, now obviously I can select this footage and move it here. I can select this footage from this stacking this window, the layer panel, and I can move up and down if I want to change their stacking order. And as you can see, I can move the footage like this. So let's say that I want the footage to start from here, or from start, or anywhere else. So I want the footage to start from here, from this particular frame. Then obviously I can press shift to get the precise, the exact position, and move it like this. So if I zoom in, you can see that it's actually starting from here, exactly from here. But the shortcut for this option is alt, and last time what we did, the shortcut is only open third bracket. Last time what I did is pressed alt. If I don't do that, if I press alt and open third bracket, it will bring the in point to the that position. If I don't do that, if I only press the open third bracket, it will bring the entire footage there, it will shift the footage there. Okay, so these two options you are going to use continuously later on, because you are going to need to move the footages in your composition quite a lot. Okay, so this is a very basic trimming in the composition. But when you are like you do in Premiere Pro, when you are importing the footage in After Effects, yes, that's because, good question, that's because that frame actually exists for that particular area. I mean, that is the time for that frame, duration of that frame. So if I zoom in, you can see, so if I zoom in with the plus icon, plus key, then you can see a particular frame is existing for that particular area. That is the duration. If you go to the next frame, it's going to show you nothing, the background color. So that's why it's not showing. If the footage is long, then you are not going to see that kind of difference. Beginning of the last frame, right? So another thing is how to trim footage before you are importing that in your composition. So let's say I'm going to now, when you're selecting a footage, if you normally what you do is you click and drag it here, but if you click and double click on a footage, you see the actual footage before importing in the composition panel. So you can play the footage from here also. And let's say I want the footage to start from here, and you have the shortcut here for that. So set in point, and you can see it's grayed out the previous area, and I want it to stay this long. I mean, I want to set the out point here, and now if I drag this footage to this composition, only this area is going to come, is going to appear. So the in point and out point have been set before importing the footage, so you can do that also. And also, like, I have made the in point and out point, right? So what I can do is basically I can select and drop in this new create new window, and this footage is going to only exist for that particular area. So now how to duplicate a footage. Control D is a shortcut to duplicating a footage, or I hope all these options are there here in the layer window, or no, I think this option is here, duplicate, Control D in the edit window, but I always use the shortcut. So to duplicate a footage, Control D, you can press the Control D multiple times, or what you can do is I have selected multiple files, footages, and I can hit Control D and it will create the duplicate for you. Now there is a difference, I mean a little bit difference between copy pasting and duplicating. So if you hit Control D, it will create a duplicate file on top of that existing file. But if you copy that file by pressing Control C, and now if you hit Control V, what is going to happen? It's going to paste the entire file on top of the selected files. So that is a little bit different. And after the duplicating, we have the option for splitting a layer. Let's say I want to create a split here, like you do with the razor tool in Premiere Pro. So the shortcut is Shift Control D. Then you can split a layer, and hopefully all these options are there. I mean, if you go to the edit, then you can get the split layer option. Okay, Control D and Shift Control D. You can see that we have these panels, different columns here. I'm going to come to all these things later on. Source name, mode, which is the blending mode, and the matte, and then parent options, and the duration. We can actually, if we right click on these options, I'm going to come to all these options, but if I right click on this option, you can hide a particular column, or you can make appear particular column here. And from here, if you can see the stretch, which is just 100%, you can change it like this. If you click and drag, it's not actually extending the duration, but what it is doing, it's actually it's actually stretching the footage. And like opposite, in Premiere Pro, if you make the footage 200%, it makes it 200% faster, because in Premiere Pro that option is called speed. Here it's called stretch. That means it stretches the duration. So what is the if you want to make the footage to stay for longer duration, that's all. No, not really hold, you want to make it slow. So let's say you have a 24 frame per second animation, you want to appear for 12 frame per second. What you can do is you can make it 200%. So that will make it 12 frame per second animation. Let's do. So if I also I can click here and I can change the value like I want it to make it 200%, and you can see it already, I mean, one frame is on the crash, another frame is not. That means it actually becomes slow. So, and this option you have, if you right click or if you go to the layer menu, you have this option in the time this sub menu, and you can stretch the footage from here. Same option, you can make it reverse, you can freeze the frame. I'm coming to what is freezing frame. The freezing frame is basically, it makes a still image out of that particular frame. Okay, it's not moving. So this is stretch option. If you want, you can get these extra columns from here, in point, out point, other things. Basically this is the stretch option is going to be the one that you are going to need it the most. Another thing is the work area. Now you can see this blue line here and here. This is indicating the work area. This is the start of your work area and this is the end of your work area. That means if you make them smaller and when you hit play, it's only going to play this much. Even if you render, it's going to render this much only, but you can change it from the render settings also. And this is how much you need to deal with. I mean, in composition settings you may make it like this is 10 second one frame, but let's say your animation or whatever it is appearing for this much frames only, and it is going to be, I mean, in the render also it will render this much work area. And to change the start and end of work area, the shortcut is, for the start shortcut is B, for the end the shortcut is N. And another very useful option, if you, let's say I have determined that I'm going to select the shift to snap with this end of this footage, and if you right click, then you have this option which is called trim comp to work area. So if I click on this option, let's see what happens. It actually trims the start and the end of the work area and make that particular area the entire thing. So time is not actually changed. Let's say when you are gonna do this, when you don't have anything necessary before this this position, and when you don't have necessary after this position, and you only need the animation to exist for this much duration only, and when it is necessary, another thing, let's say you are creating a pre-comp with this thing, yes, and then what happens, it creates a linear thing and you don't know where to start and where to end. But if you do this thing and if you create a pre-comp like this, so it's exactly starting and ending here in this area. So another option is there. See, each and every layer. No, it's not applying on the layers. It's actually trimming the entire composition. So you can select all this layer numerically. So if you hit like 1, 2, 3 in your numpad, you can select all those things from here also if you need it. And you can use markers, let's say for your animation and whatever, and you are sending your animation to next guy in the pipeline. You can select the layer, and if you hit the star, then it will create a marker, star, and here also, and you can create another one. It will create where the time indicator is, star again in, yes, and it will also snap to the markers. And another thing you can do is you can, if you are not selecting any layers, so you can see I am not selecting any layers right now. So even if I am not selecting any layer and I press the star, it will create a marker for the entire composition And the benefit, added benefit here is if I double click on a marker, yes, we can create a note here. So that title I can put here. I can say to that delete करना है तो right click and delete this marker. No. लेयर का कलर आई एम कमिंग टू दैट, वो बहुत ही यूजफुल ऑप्शन है. सो I'm just covering all the options there is. I know you're not going to need all these things in a particular thing, but later on when you are going to check this footages again, the recording, then you are going to get it. Another thing is replacing a file. So let's say I have this file here and I have applied some effects or whatever it is, like I'm changing the scaling. So I'm going to come to the shortcuts. The shortcut for scaling is S, and I'm applying this effect. I'm going to shift the hue a little bit, and let's say after that I want to replace this file with another file. Okay, file means another footage. I can do that if I select here. Actually I don't need to select here. If I select the file, another file from here, and if I press Alt now and I drag and drop on top of this file, it is going to replace the file. You can see the scale is 118, which we have done earlier, and the same effect is applied to that file also. So this option is going to be very useful. And alt drag and drop এর সময় just alt টিপে রাখবে. And the color coding of different layers, let's cover that. So if you have multiple number of layers, fewer for the lines, fewer for the let's create multiple number of duplicates. So few files, few footages are for line, few footages are for fields, few footages are for different characters or whatever it is. If you want to give them different color levels, you can. So this is not changing any value. It's not giving any colors to your actual layer or whatever. It's just changing the colors. It's very convenient, yes, when you are working to find a particular layer, because a lot of time you're not going to name them properly, or it's like this, you don't have a lot of space here, or that can be any kind of thing. So you can just quickly change the colors to distinguish them from the others, and you can actually change these colors. You cannot change the names, but you can change the colors. Like you can make it much more saturated or desaturated or whatever changes you want to make, and that is from preference levels. From there you can see all these colors, and if I make this red a little bit brighter, then if I hit OK, then it is going to be bright red. Okay, and you cannot undo by hitting Ctrl Z these options, because these are, you are changing the parameter. And so from next day we are going to start with working on simple projects, creating pre-comp, alignment of footages, working with keyframes, masking, shape layer, parenting, and all this thing. Okay, so this is very basic of how to import and deal with footages. So there is few options also that I haven't covered, so let's do that. This is the view button. As you guys all know, you can turn on and off a particular layer. You're not going to see any changes, so let me delete all these things. So you can turn on and off like this. You can turn on and off the sound, and the best thing is, like even these on and off actions are a undo redo action for you. And if you like just click here and drag, and it is going to turn off the display for all this thing, so audio for all this thing. Also, let's say you have selected these multiple things and you want to turn off the display, you can just click here once and it will going to display, turn off the display for all this option. And this same thing happens for all the files, all the footages. Like I want to change the blending mode for all these files, I can select them and change the blending mode. And also, let's say I want to, there is a lot of thing in our composition, so let's create a shape. There is a lot of things in our composition. I want to solo a particular file, and that you can do, which is a very useful option. This option is for soloing a particular layer. Okay, I'm soloing this one or I'm soloing this one. Okay, this is for locking. Once you are done with the particular layer and you don't want to mess it up accidentally, you can lock them. And the level I have already talked. And after that we have blending mode, then we have mattes, I'm going to come to that. And then we have parenting, you can parent this layer with some other layer, I'm going to come to that again later. And these options are these options I can cover right now, which is, let's say you have a lot of footages again and you don't need to see all these things in your timeline, but those things you need to to appear them in your actual composition, but we don't need to see them. But let's say I am going to work with only these two layers, these top two layers, and the other layers we don't need now. So what I can do is this option. This is basically toggle option. If I toggle to swatches mode, so from here I can actually turn on this option, and it will turn on for all the layers as I have selected all of them. And this is basically to hide all this layer from our timeline. So if I turn on this icon right now, all the options which is this I've turned on is going to be hidden, but they are actually going to appear in the render. They are actually going to appear in the actual our composition panel, but they are going to be hidden from our layer for our convenience only. But anytime we can turn them on. Okay, and other options we are going to come to that, all of these things later on. Okay, so this is basically it for the introduction of After Effects. Okay.